Yeah.
Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Adi. Ukraine war, another week passes by with not much as a matter of a resolution coming out from this war, but the escalations do continue. Ukrainians attack inside Russian territory. President Zelensky doesn't want to come home. The Americans are pushing for a counteroffensive. And of course, there are drone attacks which happen in Moscow. Four big things. Of course, there are lots more little things that we will discuss with Major General Prabdeep Singh, who's joining us today. Sir, good evening and welcome back, sir.
Good evening and good to be back on the show, Adi. It's always a pleasure to be here and discuss the most happening event of perhaps the century, which is taking place, because this is where the geopolitic dynamics are going to change for the rest of God knows how many years. Uh,
Absolutely.
we have seen the revival of NATO because of the Ukraine war. We are seeing countries patching up. We were talking Iraq, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. We're talking about the Chinese influence growing and Chinese becoming a mediator in peace. Even the Africans also asserting themselves, African nations, and trying to broker peace. It shows a dynamic shift between the global south and the north. Uh, so there is lots happening when it comes to the Ukrainian picture, as you rightly mentioned, drone attacks in Kiev, uh, drone attacks within Russia. The air has started to assert itself. The air defense has kind of in a way crumbled. I would put it
Mm.
this way, and more and more drones are getting. I mean, they claim that lots of drones are being brought down, but we do not have much proof of that. The ammunition is fast depleting, at least on the NATO side. The Russians' production lines are, I mean, they're working overtime. The Russians' campaign, the entire campaign is becoming more systematic as what it as what we've seen against what was happening earlier. So things have really changed. President Zelensky doesn't want to get home. That's a fact. I mean, today he's become a kind of a spokesman of the world, of the EU and NATO, and he started dictating terms to them. Earlier, he was just begging for arms.
Mm.
Today he is uh, actually dictating terms. You know, he's on a whirlwind tour, whirlwind world tour. Today he's in this country, tomorrow in that country. Today he's addressing this particular group. Earlier he addressed the Arab League, and now he's planning to get on to the African nations, trying to build a consensus amongst them to support and to justify this war. I don't know. I do not really know as to where it's going to lead him to. I made a statement the other day somewhere in one of these WhatsApp chats that we're having. Uh, the West better be very clear, and especially I would say the United Kingdom, the French, they better get it very clear in their heads that they should stop living in the colonial era. It's over. The global South has found a voice. They have united, and people are no longer kind of getting fooled or getting what should I say, enchanted at what the colonial, in the colonial times they could suppress somebody. Now it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen at all. People have found their voices. They know. You would have heard the South African, you know, the prime minister just coming around and saying that there was this BBC reporter who thought they were discussing the arrest of Putin, and he says if we would like to have him here tomorrow, and he's a head of a state, and no ways will he be arrested. So these kind of things are happening. The world is finding its own place. The countries are started to realize that all this while they have been, I would say, taken up a different path. Things are going to change. Russia is not going to be taking this lightly. While it's paying a very heavy price, it's worried about its future. If Europe is worried about is, I mean, isn't it amazing that the entire of Europe is scared of Russia invading their countries? So what does it go to prove? It goes to prove that Russia is actually a mighty, mighty nation with the good, bad, or ugly intent. And as far as I am concerned, the intent is a very noble intent, saying that let's live peacefully, do not provoke me. If you provoke me, I have the wherewithal uh, to
To
sort you
fix
guys
you.
out. And that's what is precisely happening. Earlier, he thought he was alone. Now it is not so. China has also got into the bandwagon, is collaborating along with the Russians. And Russia and China together, or I would say the BRICS nation together, is going to be a very, very powerful combine. So the NATO better watch out, is what I would say. And they better trade very carefully. They are all in recession. I mean, the country is all
Germany is
going
starting.
down as far as economics is concerned. So they got to be looking within and thinking a little rational, that this is not a good thing, that a path taken at the moment is not a very good path. So you know, another thing that you perhaps missed out and had it in your mind to say was the Black Sea part of it is assuming importance. I've always been saying Odessa, Odessa, Odessa.
That was going to be actually an
Yeah,
icebreaker for the next question. But anyways, since you've broken it out,
it's
sir,
okay.
if I may, you
Yeah,
predicted attacks on airfields. You predicted
yeah.
attacks in the Black Sea. Ukraine doesn't have a navy officially anymore. They had one battleship that was it's a
That's been
bottom
taken
of the
off.
tactic.
So
Attacks on the airfields are pretty heavy, even in Kiev.
I guess they hear this. Maybe somebody is hearing it and acting on it or whatever it is. But I would say so. Even if they are, it's a very good thing. But that is how campaigns are. Campaigns are executed. These are not, you know, the much ado,
Random.
much talk of counter offensive. I don't see no counter offensive anywhere. And if you, I mean, you hear what their intelligence chief is talking about. What's his name? Budadev or something,
Hmm.
right? He's been talking of the counteroffensive taking place, Crimea being taken. I'm from Crimea, and we'll see Crimea being taken by the end of spring and end of summer. God knows what is happening. I mean, that's not going to happen. The point I'm trying to make here is that this counteroffensive, and everybody saying it'll be a big surprise. Uh, Give me a surprise. The world is waiting for this counteroffensive. The counteroffensive is not coming. Agree, you're not going to tell us where you're going to bring it. But as I see it, it ain't happening in the near future. Plain and simple. It ain't happening. They're talking of, at the moment, they're talking of building coalitions for jets, for fighter jets. So if you're talking about building a coalition, getting a fighter jet is God knows when.
Training,
Training of
ammunition.
fighter, training of fighter pilots. I mean, it's like raising a new army, armed forces altogether, and getting the concept right. So
Absolutely.
that'll take maybe another decade, is what I'm looking at. So are you preparing for that? Because in the present circumstances, these counter offensives are of no significance. As I read the battle, the Russians are making small gains on all fronts every day.
Every day, sir.
Every day they are inching forward towards the river line. So to say,
They've taken they've gone
yeah,
towards the north also, sir, towards Kharkiv. They've crossed the Oskal
yes,
River.
absolutely. So the issue here is that one odd counter attack by the Ukrainian armed forces. Well, that will happen. That's a battle going on. I mean, somewhere you will counter attack. But as far as the Russians are concerned, all along the front, they are advancing, 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 and their execution of the entire campaign, that is towards the depth, in the depth areas of Ukraine, is very effective. Haven't they taken on rail lines? Haven't they taken on
Yeah.
logistic nodes? They're taking on all that. Now they're taking on the airfields. They start attacking the naval ports. So the entire wherewithal is going to crumble one sooner or later. And these guys are doing it in a very systematic manner. And if I had to execute an operation like this, I would also be doing the same. So once he's brought down all the entire airfields, the aircraft cannot operate from Ukrainian soil. When the runways are all damaged, the runway is not fit enough. The aircraft have been taken down. Some of them have got damaged. The air traffic controllers, the ATCs have been destroyed. The ammunition dumps have been destroyed. I mean, what are you going to fight with? Hats off to the Ukrainian soldier, the common soldier who's fighting, the infantry guy who's fighting. I
Absolutely.
mean, I tip my hat for these guys. They're brilliant and they're very courageous. But unfortunately, they're not getting supported by the kind of wherewithal uh, that should be there. Now, as far as the Russians are concerned, a full-fledged army fighting a coordinated battle. With the air
Aram
is
sir.
active, with the missiles are active, uh, there is no pressure on the logistics. Everything is in place. You can now trust me. The world can keep applying pressure on Russia to come to terms, but it will come to terms, and whenever it comes to terms, will be on their own terms.
Mm.
That is, I have taken this particular line. I am here. I am not going back from here. Why should he? I mean, you provoked him to the degree that he was forced to do all this. And then the whole world ganged up together to say this guy's a aggressor. So you don't want to go back. So I kind of feel Russia is going to continue to gain. Every bit of every inch of land being gained every day is adding on to it. And they're in there for the long haul.
Yeah.
I mean, the US-led NATO is in there for the long haul. There are a couple of Ukrainians still left, as far as they are concerned. So it's going to continue. Yeah.
Sir, let's I want to get into the battle scene, and you spoke about the inching forward, or I wonder what the Russians are terming it as. But there are two, three things I want to talk about. One is the geopolitics of it. Then is this Ukrainian attempt to keep on pricking into Russia, and that's something which I find very interesting. You have the Russians taking in attacks on themselves in Moscow with these tiny little drones, which suddenly have people have started realizing have the capability of flying almost 600, 800 kilometers and going hitting their targets. They also sent out these Orlan B, target drones which were reconfigured to hit, and that explosion was pretty massive. Uh, Today evening, afternoon, there was another news: 4, 5 tanks entered into Russia again. So these pinpricks are happening again and again, and these are obviously pretty irritating for the Russian high command. How do you see this? What's the reason, and how do you see this, sir?
How do I see it? There's just irritants. As you said, that irritation. These are irritants, and these are pinpricks. These are to keep the Russians on the toes. These are messages to the Russians to say that look, while I may not have the kind of air force or the wherewithal to reach you with long range weapons, but I have my people within Russian soil who will let out these drones. I
So
mean, these are small
you're
small
saying
drones
these are
which
people within Russian soils that are flying these little drones?
absolutely these are these the resistance forces, the partisans, so to say, uh, or this is that Russian volunteer force and whatnot we
Whatever.
spoke
Yeah.
about the other day. So these have been specially created. They have been inserted to create havoc and panic. blow up a train here and launch a drone here and cause a little bit of panic and put a little pressure on the uh, Russian polity and the armed forces.
Mm.
Now,
Mm.
are they diversionary? They are diversionary in a manner, but I do not see the linkage with any counter-offensive coming. Because if there is a counter-offensive coming, that counter-offensive is not is could have been picked up by now. Or even if it is, you just visualize a scenario that say about 200 odd tanks have to cross the river. They must concentrate somewhere. They can be dispersed, but then they have to cross from a particular area. It has to be supported by the artillery. It has to be supported by logistics. It has to be supported logistics in terms of fuel trains, engineer trains. We call them trains, even a convoy of engineers, bridging equipment, mining equipment, demining equipment, whatever. We call them trains. So the
Mm.
bridging train has to come. The bridges are a clear giveaway. Uh, the moment you'll see bridges on the other side, those are the clear indicators as to where the offensive is directed.
Concentration is happening. Mm.
Why? Because the bridging equipment is is a scarce commodity, and this commodity has to be applied and used where actual operations are going to take place. And it's a huge force. It's a huge train. So that's a clear giveaway as to where the offensive is heading. So these kind of indicators are not coming as yet. The only thing that we know today is they're gathering their equipment.
Close to Zaporozhye was the news.
Yeah, they're gathering their equipment. They're getting and what is happening because they're gathering the equipment, because they're concentrating, they're getting easily picked up and then getting banged.
Mm.
And that will continue to happen because they do not have the air defense capability that should be associated with all this. So these drones inside Russian soil are pinpricks at the moment, just to keep them on the toes, just to at the same time, if you just I'm sure you're aware of the statements given by the United States saying that, look, we've got nothing to do with anything which is going on into Russia. If we are providing weapons, we are providing weapons for your self-defense
Your
within
use.
within your territory. We are not wanting you to provoke Russia with our weapons. Now, I'm sure this is a diplomatic statement. You know, on the ground, has to be somebody who's directing all this. These underground operations also, which take place to foment trouble,
This is the
are
SAS.
yeah, it's the SAS. That is why the United Kingdom today is making such obnoxious statements, if I may just
Yeah.
put it. So they are the ones who are saying, and then you have these one or loose cannons like the Senator, what's his name, Graham
Lindsey
Lindsay,
Graham.
and all that. These guys making statements that this is the most well spent money of the Americans. So let's not get very hassled by these pinpricks at the moment, until or unless it becomes a movement from within the masses.
Mm.
It has to be a true resistance.
Correct. Yeah.
If it is an exported, like sorry, if it is an imported resistance, like these Russians belonging to Ukraine, if they are the ones who are inside, like if the Russian volunteer force is there and the other faction which is there, they are not sons of the soil. They are not Russians who are revolting. They are Ukrainians who are
Ukrainians doused as
Ukraine.
Russians. Yes.
Yeah, they're the
Mm.
ones who speak Russian and who have been traditionally living there, and they've been given adequate money. Basically, they've been given tons and tons of money. Go and create havoc there. So that's what they're doing right now. So if it is not coming from within, these resistance and this these kind of movements are of no use. And the scale at the moment is not so much,
Very
not
small.
so worrisome.
Let's talk
That's what I would.
politics, sir.
It's
Let's
all.
talk politics. Let's talk what's happening in the West. They've got this NATO summit coming up. You've got Joe Biden's re-election coming up. What's the
Yeah,
best case scenario, sir? See, at the end of it, domestic politics within the US will impact this war. What's your best case scenario, sir, with regards to the election? Would they want this war to continue, or would they want to, you know, just figure out a end to it? Which seems unlikely to me when I'm actually speaking it. But what's your opinion?
you see, elections are in Feb 24, and this present United States government will continue to push, will continue to spend money because they feel and that a positive outcome of their investment in Eastern Europe, I would put it, it's an investment as far as they are concerned, is going to stand in their favor as far as the elections are concerned. A positive outcome. Now, is that positive outcome going to come? And that can only come if there is a worthwhile counteroffensive. Because if a counteroffensive is launched and it is not worthwhile and does not have any decisive effects, trust me, that is the end of NATO and that is the end of United States hegemony or whatever you call it. It's going to be a turning point in the history of the world. So the United States, for their own survival, the current whatever Republicans or whatever they are, uh, they it is for their own survival that they will push this war with the hope of getting a positive outcome.
Hmm.
The entire thing today is hinging on this counteroffensive. Why? Because of this very factor. You lose if you have no gains out of this. If the Ukrainians can't push it, NATO becomes irrelevant. The United States uh, standing in society is down in the dumps.
Two wars back to back, you've lost.
Yes. So a lot is at stake as far as I would say US, EU, and NATO is concerned.
So, sir, Zelensky. Now, this is an interesting case to me, sir, because he's now going around becoming the chanda collector, and you know, with all due regard to the Ukrainian people, I don't have any regard for him. Uh, the guy's become a glorified chanda collector going around. You said that he's becoming more demanding. Now, that to me is frustration. I mean, you've probably there was a coup attempt where this general has been, for the lack of a better word, damaged. Zaluzny. They've tried a cover-up operation by putting out some photographs, but if you just look at the guy, he was Zaluzny is this big, huge, typical Russian guy, that Slavic guy. This chap was thin, frail, sucked in this thing, obviously very sick or something like that. But what's happening with this guy? I say, is he losing balance within? Because there are now reports coming out, and there are certain Ukrainian bloggers writing about the political opposition to Zelensky within Ukraine. So
You
what's
see,
happening here? What's happening to him?
now my reading of the whole thing is Zelensky today uh, is becoming a little overconfident about himself as far as dealing with the EU and NATO countries and the heads of states, etc., is concerned. So he's got a massive ego boost,
Hmm.
and so he feels that whatever I want this, and the world will provide me this because he's holding the EU, NATO, and the Americans to ransom for the reason we just spoke about.
Yeah.
He
He's
understands
now
that.
realized the political implications of this war.
Yeah. So he started understanding that. For his own survival also, this is very important. Now, there is a statement made by one of the political analysts, who's a Ukrainian political analyst, Kornichuk. He says that Zelensky wants to leave power as soon as possible.
Isn't that what you guys had told him some time ago?
Yes, haven't we spoken about it? That they told him, Poland told him, you better resign. Now, this guy is saying, is a political analyst who says he wants to lose power as soon as possible. Trust me, if I had got so much of money, I would rather like to go and enjoy my money than fight for a country which is going to be losing.
Which I can't even stop. I mean, if
Yeah.
I had some control, I would have stopped it. But
So and then there is this talk of that he should be tried for treason. So there are a lot of underpinnings within Ukraine, which is
this
happening.
is a Scottish
He,
newspaper that reported it.
yeah. Now he's going to be tried for treason. He should resign. He's wanting to lose, give away power as soon as possible. He's made tons and tons of money. So when it comes to all this, that means there is a tremendous amount of dissent as far as the public is concerned, or the common man is concerned, or even the political analysts are concerned. So, and he's outside the country, he doesn't come inside the country. When he goes outside the country, he gets maximum protection. No,
Hmm.
no nation wants to be seen as the one on whose soil this guy was assassinated. So they give him all the protection. So he feels safe outside. After all, he's enjoying parties and state. What do you call? All the reception that he gets is he's a state guest. He's treated with awe and all that importance that he's getting. Why the hell should be there in the front? So there is a lot which is happening there. And as you mentioned, Zaluzny's been kind of sidelined. The interior, that minister, intelligence minister Budadev,
Hmm.
he has started making statements he was never heard of earlier,
Nobody
and
heard of
suddenly,
him.
yeah, uh, as I gather, he's quite a wheeler dealer.
So
You know,
what actually brings me a little bit of a funny thing, because if you remember 3 4 months ago, their interior minister and his entire staff went down in a helicopter crash.
yes, that's what they say.
I
That's what they say. So this gentleman has been rising in the what do you call, rising in the corridors of power at such a fast pace, and today he's from an unheard person, he's become the most heard person.
Mhm.
So this gentleman has also perhaps got dreams of making it big as far as Ukraine is concerned. Now, what happens? What is Zelensky's fate? That's what we got to be seeing. If the counteroffensive is not launched, which they are saying it's not going to get launched, there's this commander of the ground forces, Ukrainian ground forces, Sirsky is his
In
name, is it?
Bakhmut.
No, no, no. Overall, the commander ground forces of
Ah,
the
wo,
entire Sirsky,
Zilki. Zilski.
Sirsky. He's
Zilski.
admitted,
Zilski.
uh,
Strisky.
yeah, Sirsky. He's
He was the in
admitted that,
charge in Bakhmut.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. He says all that has been now, suspended. An advance towards Bakhmut, or is, we're not talking about a counteroffensive at all now, and we're looking at uh, regaining. You got to regain control. You got to regain and see as to where you're going to go. What is your current status? So uh, on the Ukrainian side, they do not have the wherewithal for a coordinated fight.
Hmm.
Hathiyar आए नहीं, weapons haven't arrived, aircraft haven't arrived, they are yet to be trained, ammunition is getting blown up by the day, there is shortage of ammunition, there's shortage of manpower. Then and the command and control centers, the decision making centers, we call them command and control centers, they are being taken on. So when all this is happening, there is total disarray in the Ukrainian side. Zelensky is outside the country. So I really do not know as to what is happening there.
That's a very interesting situation to me. The guy doesn't just want to go back to his own country. He's very happy outside and wearing that ugly green thing that he wears around. I mean, whatever said and done, you look at the leaders during the Second World War, and even the last pictures of Hitler, for that matter, were
No,
well
no,
dressed.
that's the
And this
difference,
guy looks like a joker. I mean, come on.
No, no, he you can't. ठीक है, that may be making that a brand statement that I'm the guy on the ground and I'm not worried about dressing up and protocol and things like that. So that's where overconfidence has come in, and overconfidence kills, my friend.
That's
Just
what I
remember
was trying
that
to get to. Yeah, it affects you mentally.
overconfidence always kills. You know, and you got to take your team together. I don't see no team. I only see Zelensky.
Hmm.
Have you ever seen a team going along with him? Either it's his wife who's taken off somewhere and trying to, she goes on a holiday and then she says, okay, let me meet the president and request for arms. And she's enjoying herself. After all, they got to park the money, right? So this kind of a thing is very visible. When you go on a peace deal, you have this thing. I don't see no foreign minister going along with him, or if somebody is looking after his economy, the finance minister going along, or some technical guy going along, or a general going along. Have you heard of this? So and so went along with the chief of the army, or chief of the navy, or the
No,
chief of the air
no,
force begging
no.
for weapons. That ain't happening. How come? So when there is no delegation moving, so there is a problem. There is a huge problem. I wish the EU and the NATO realize that, because if I hope they're listening in. They're being led on up a gum tree, if I may just put
Ah,
it.
oh, worse than that, sir. Worse than
Yeah.
that. Mm.
So these guys are somehow not realizing because of their political blindness.
That's
Because
the globalist neocon, whatever you want to call it. They just.
because all these guys are making money. I mean, corruption. When you talk of corruption, uh, I my own conclusion is this: there's no accounting of the weapons,
Yep.
where they're going. There's no accounting of the money which is going. One or two guys you don't like, so you put them against corruption and knock them off, or put them behind bars. That's what the Ukrainians are doing.
Yep. He tried to remove his defense minister, Huani. Didn't.
You see, the amount of money which has been poured in is not funny, right?
Yes.
And if this kind of money has been poured in, it better show results. And that's what I think the French uh, uh, President Macron, he's the one who's made a statement. He says it's we will think otherwise if, depending on the outcome of the counteroffensive. So, and you're fighting I'm just giving you a contrast.
Hmm.
Somebody who's launched a campaign and somebody who's trying to get his act together. The outcome is very, very evident. It may be slow, the movement, the progress may be slow, but definitely Russia is on the winning side.
There's
And
no question about that. Hmm.
and the more the peace is delayed, the more the land Ukraine will lose. It's simple and that.
My final question to you is about Russia, sir. And here
Yeah.
is a curious case, which is a lot of people have this thing that, the Chinese are today much involved with the Russians, and the Chinese are standing by and supporting the Russians and this and that. I look at it completely differently. So I look at it the opposite way around. The Russians are smart enough to know what the Chinese want. They're using the Chinese to get what they want. And if you look at the IMF report that comes out, it says that Russia is the richest economy today in the world. because of its commodities, because of its resources, and because of just the way it's been handling its economy. And this to me is very interesting because here is a Russia who everybody think is getting played by China. Now I want to ask you, sir, who's actually getting played in this deal? Because I don't see the Russians getting played at all. I see the Russians getting what they want, whereas the Chinese going into the, you know, proverbial outhouse.
Now, uh, I have a friend who just visited Russia and returned from Moscow.
Sir.
He says all the brands are there,
Ah,
shopping is going on. It's the economy is moving. People are happy while a war is being fought. That's the military which is fighting, but the common man today is leading a very comfortable life.
and the Russians are used to war, so there's
And
nothing.
yeah, the Russians are used to hardship and war. All right, so that is one. Are the Russians smarter or the Chinese smarter? I mean, that's the question that you posed to me. Who's smarter, the Chinese or the Russians? Trust me, they have a common enemy. And the common enemy that they have today is the United States.
Yep.
Okay? As far as China is concerned, China is not anti EU.
Hmm.
China is a banya. Chinese, they are only looking at economics. They are looking at getting the route open towards Europe so that they can trade with Europe. They have an enemy with America. They want to have, I would, you know, they would like to squeeze something of the Americans, right? And hold them to ransom. So now, when you have common interests of countering a particular country or a
Hmm.
nation, obviously you will gang up together. You will gang up together while keeping your own interests alive. China is not going to commit. I mean, 100% into Russia. The Russia is not interested in China 100%. He wants to use the Chinese card to its advantage,
Yep.
right? The Chinese want the Russians by their side so that they are a powerful bloc. So united, if the two of them are ganged up together on certain issues, they're much more powerful than they are, single-handed. So it is a mutual kind of arrangement or understanding because the Chinese never form any a bloc per se.
Hmm.
They may become part of BRICS and SCO and things like that, but they do not really. They keep their own independence because their aim is to be the number one country by 2050, the sole superpower in 2050. And 2050 today doesn't seem to be very far because it's already 23 and you've got about 27 years to go, 26 and a few months plus to go to become to achieve their ambitions. 2 decades, that's not much. And these guys are well on its path, right? Unfortunately, the Western media always wants to portray to its own people that Russia is you know, is a
Third rate
statement
country.
worth talking about.
As they said, it's a what? A gas station masquerading as a country.
So if they're going to, this is a nice phrase, never heard this before. If it's a gas station masquerading as a country and that is what they think, I think their perceptions are wrong. They have a tendency. Unfortunately, these guys have a tendency to belittle others, to look at others from the eyes of the colonial past. Not happening. Not happening. So to justify their actions, the propaganda machine works over time and they want to condemn Russia and they want to condemn China. And obviously, the two of them gang up together and screw the shit out of these guys, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, and they'll gang up when they want to gang up on issues. on which they want to gang up. Now, I don't know whether you saw, I sent you something across
Oh
on
yes,
LinkedIn.
John Mosheimer.
Yeah. What is he talking? Arctic, right? Didn't I talk Arctic very beginning?
Yep, absolutely, sir.
So this entire game is leading towards something else. It's leading towards the effect of the climate change to be able to become a bigger. Who's going to be the bigger player in the Arctic Circle, in the Arctic region, in the future? Because that is the untapped. It was snow covered, so the snow is melting. When the snow is melting, new routes are being created. The northern sea lane, the new routes are getting created. New dynamics want to take place. New minerals, new all that. So there's a shift, and people are. We are looking Ukraine. People are looking 2050 or maybe ahead. So this is what you got to be thinking.
It's an interesting
Unfortunately,
game, which
so
is yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's a very interesting game, and this game in our generation maybe it will unfold or not. I cannot say, but definitely if you go down deep and study it deeply, this is where the game lies.
No, John Mosheimer's comments are very realistic, sir. And he's talked about the factor that there are few countries in the world, and he mentioned India, and he meant in his recent video about 2 3 weeks ago, he's done a video with uh, uh, I think the British or the Irish actually, some Irish university he traveled to. No, sorry, a German university he traveled to, and it's there on YouTube. The uh, Mike Otto Otto or something like that, the name of the interviewer. He said that India today is in a position where it is actually talking about 2047, where they want to be a developed country. China says they want to be a fully developed and a powered nation by 2049. And he said, we don't see a long-term statement coming out of any of the rest of the powers. Russia is talking about being a technological superpower by that time. They're talking about having high technology and stuff like that. He says we don't see that from the West. What is Germany's long-term vision? It's not there.
Why?
So
Because these guys have been overshadowed when they started thinking Europe. I mean, like, I'm going to come back to what I keep saying. When they started thinking Europe, when do you start thinking Europe? When you start thinking of defending yourself as Europe.
yeah, yeah.
And you talked about the defense forces and collective, defense and stuff like that. And there comes Ukraine gets created, and the NATO gets revived, and the United States jumps in. Imagine, I'm just giving you a scenario. You have the United States, the Canada, you have US and Canada, you have Europe, United Europe, you have Russia, China, the BRICS nations all ganged up together. Trust me, Europe on its own would be a formidable force because it has the best of defense industry,
Yeah,
and
technology.
the technology levels are very high. They have access to sea. Their shipping industry is very good. All that. Then, so it would become a really powerful bloc. You take out the NATO part of the thing from your this thing, and minus that, minus the US and Canada, and you have a united Europe. Oh my God, is what I would just want to say. And the moment they were starting to getting their acts together, this has been created.
The Americans said, "Wait a minute, guys, we still
No,
own you."
yeah, African Union. When you look at the African Union, when they got united, I mean, hats off. They found a lot of discontent, which is taking place. A lot of wars taking place, within the countries, and the wars taking place because of influence of the outside nations, the
Yes,
Europeans. Because all problem in Africa has been created by the Europeans, right?
yes.
Whether it is Belgium, France, I mean, I don't want to start up on that or in the Brits. So all this has a manifestation of the colonialism which existed, whether it's Portugal or Portuguese colonies, the French colonies, the Belgian colonies, or the British colonies, right? So when they've got together and they said, okay, we will sort out our equipment, our issues ourselves along with the United Nations peacekeeping forces. So they, in any country which is war ravaged, they have the African Union forces there. So they have got their act together to a great degree. And just imagine if Europe did that. Unfortunately, they're being led up the gum tree. Was that's about all. Yeah,
That's a deep thought. That's really a deep thought, and that's the funny part about it is that there are these governments who are really not bothered about what's happening in their country, rather
no,
than they're looking at यहाँ पर वहाँ पर human rights, this that ये वो. Your own country is in doldrums, and that's really surprising, and it makes one understand why globalism is so hated in the world today, and
yeah.
why people are.
Now we have Sweden about to join in now. They want to take a call. Then joining NATO. Then they're talking of in the July summit, which is going to take place, NATO summit. They're going to talk of Ukraine's membership. So all this, I don't know where it's going to lead.
It's going to lead us with a lot of analysis to do and a lot of understanding, and in India a clear path for itself. I think because all these guys,
Oh, I, I purposely do not bring India into all this because India is not involved.
it's not. We have nothing to do with
India,
this.
India is not involved. We've got a definite part. Today we're the largest growing economy, 7.2%. Growth. Not funny. Not funny. And that is because we chose to remain uh, aloof from all these troubles.
Correct.
Not my monkey, not my back. I mean, and I think the fantastic my Maxim Sanuki. That's the book I wrote, right? So I have it somewhere here. So that's the attitude we're following. Sanuki is not my monkey, not my back. So
Absolutely.
and that's how we are able to maintain this because we haven't got into thinking what the others are doing, and we should also be. I mustn't be left out. The fear of getting left out. So we know where we stand, and I think we are beyond all this.
Absolutely. Let's take some questions up, guys. Before I do that, like the video, subscribe, spread the word about this. Every Thursday night, we cover Ukraine. And trust you me, there have been predictions here. But before the close of the show, my last question to Sir will be predictions for the next week. What's going to happen? Whatever Sir said last week in terms of the Black Sea and in terms of the air attacks have all come true. Ukraine does not have an effective naval force anymore, by the way. Their ports are being attacked, and that one or two ships that they had are sunk at the bottom of the sea. So before I get into that, I'd also like to inform you you can contribute to the Dev Talks effort through the QR code up there, become a member, or send us a super sticker or a super chat. Let's take the first question. Ishan, thanks so much. He says, Jain sir, do you believe that Russia can soon gain the leverage to force Ukraine to the negotiation table? And do you believe that the West has now started to lose the propaganda war?
Yes. Yeah, a good question, Ishan. The fact of the matter remains, Ukraine is talking peace. Why? You know, sometimes it's as per my terms, and the term being the Russia should go away. But earlier they were not talking peace.
We will beat Russia. We will break Russia. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
Yes, we will break Russia. We will take back Crimea. When did you last hear in the last 15, 20 days of taking back Crimea?
Only from Victoria Noodle, sir. No one else.
She can do what she wants. But where have you heard this? That Crimea and Gango and all that. So what I'm trying to say is the back is being broken systematically. When I say the back has been broken, gentlemen, all those when you the moment your industrial complex is destroyed, the moment your war waging capability has been reduced to the bare minimum, uh, as it is, the cities are being destroyed, being targeted, right? The capital Kiev is being targeted. You can do what you want to by letting out a drone here and there on Moscow. Agreed. After all, and rightly so. You are being attacked in your capital. You very much have the right to attack their capital. So I'm for it. If I were in the Ukrainian side, I would also do the same. But
Absolutely.
uh, but to the degree that I can, but can I do that? We're not talking that. But Russia has definitely been able to suppress uh, to a large extent, and the world has started realizing that. The EU has started realizing that. NATO started realizing that you are fighting a coordinated, well coordinated, superior armed force. So the Russians have got their act together and they're letting them have it. So sooner or later there will be a negotiation, but negotiation then will be on the Russian terms. And the Russian terms once again, river river line, Odessa, complete control over Black Sea. That's it. Nothing short of that.
That's actually becoming pretty clear now, sir. Shritix asked, "What is the point of smashing 45 windows in Moscow? Was it serious or more of a message that the Ukrainians were sending, trying to send a message? What escalation will happen when Ukraine finally gets the Mirages or the F-16? Mirages, I don't think the French will give, but the F-16s."
Yeah, so you got two parts. What's the point of those, pinpricks which are taking place in Moscow? As I mentioned during the while we were discussing, these are pinpricks just to tell them that look, we can make a little life miserable for you also.
Make you answer
Right?
questions to your own public.
Yeah. So I said that these you know guerrillas who are operating, and they would, and these drones are what, very small drones
Yes,
which
sir.
are uh, which can be easily launched. So they are the ones causing all the little bit of pinpricks. So actually, it ain't making no difference. A difference will be made when it is a bombing exercise which takes place. Missiles landing up in Moscow proper. And if the missile shield, I mean, they are not taken down by the air defense, then it'll be an issue. So these kind of drones are very easily to bring down or to counter. I don't know whether we discussed this. You know, the electronics part of it can be the communication can get disturbed through a superior EW arrangement which is there in place. So all these things, there are various things which can happen. Now the second part of it, F-16s. So what escalation will take place?
Only if they
I
take
wish
off, will there be a problem?
I wish I could use another word, a good one, but then I won't because we are on media. Uh, but trust me, it ain't going to make much of a difference. No, who's going to be better trained? The Russian pilots or the Russian aircraft superior F-35s and things like that, or Sukhois and whatnot they have. The whole world is buying aircraft from Russia, man. So they got the best technology. They got the best fighter pilots who are testing these aircraft, and they are going to you know play havoc on these F-16s, because these F-16s are going to be piloted by uh, rookies.
And these are Block Bs, the
Yeah,
same old
freshly.
broken ones that Pakistanis have.
Yeah, they're those midlife upgraded ones,
Yeah.
MLUs, and they're going to be about. They say they need about 200, and as I said, they're going to be piloted by rookies. There may be one or two, 25% may be experienced pilots, but the 75% are going to be rookies who are going to be recently trained, freshly trained to fly. So, and the next question is, when will that happen? When will they get the F-16s? By when will they finish the training? When will they? Because if they need to launch a counteroffensive, they need to have all this. Do they have
All
it?
this yesterday they needed it.
So, these kind of F-16s really not going to make much of a difference. It'll boost the morale, all right. But by the time Russia would have been, instant much closer. Yeah,
Let's take a thoda sa out of syllabus question, but it's pretty relevant, sir, because there's a misnomer with regards the NATO plus, and he asks, Ishan, thanks so much. He says, "What's your opinion on US offer to India to join NATO? It's not NATO, it's NATO plus. Does it seem like some last-ditch arm twisting together 404s, 414s, or just a propaganda to attempt to weaken the Indo-Russian relations?" The last part is very interesting to me.
yeah. This is incidentally, it may have been talked about openly today, but this is not something which is new.
Me
This
telling you to join.
offer to join NATO is not new.
Yes.
You can go back. You can go back about 3 to 4 years and dig out. Uh, you would find the same thing coming that India has been requested to join NATO, and India would like to be a partner and whatnot.
Even during the
So
Iraq War,
no, no, no. It is not that. It is not that old. It is about 4 to 5 years back that this kind of stuff. If you go back, you'll find. If you Google, you'll find this. So this thing did happen. This talk did take place,
yeah,
and we leave it at that. But implications of this: will India join? India is not stupid. You know, we like to. Yes, we are with the United States. Uh, we as a country would want to make the best of our relationship. We are a fantastic strategic partner. All that. Why? Common enemy, China. Number two, biggest, largest democracies. Number three, fastest growing economy, and our technological mind. I would just put it, the human resource, all that. So we have a good thing going with the United States. So while I'm when I'm discussing Ukraine, I am definitely critical of the United States. But when it comes to Indian relationship with United States or with Russia, uh, well, trust me, there's a
the lines are
lot of good things happening between the two countries. And is it an attempt to weaken the Indo-Russian relationship? Uh, that is on a different plane. That's on a different plane. You know, we,
NATO plus
we
is more or less targeted towards China. So
yeah. So we exercise strategic autonomy.
yeah,
We are good with everybody. We, we've got no animosity with anybody. We don't join a bloc. So that is something that we always do. So yes, the Americans want us to buy more of their equipment than Russian equipment, definitely. And as we have seen, that it has taken place over the years, the last decade or so. So these are dynamics which continue,
true.
irrespective of the Ukrainian war.
Harshdeep asks, we haven't seen direct Chinese support with weapons and military to Russia against Ukraine. Do you think Russia will give military support to China against the US in Taiwan?
Uh, no, no, no. Let's not now. Uh, You made it very clear. China has not given any military support to Russia. It's all at the moment. I'm their big brother, and the same kind of a support will exist at that particular time. I think it's mutual, and China would not want any support from outside. May I just put it this way? China is every day they think Taiwan. They practice the Taiwan contingency on a regular basis. They have adequate, uh, you know, troops. The entire of the southern command, whatever it's called, the is Western. What is that? Central Theater Command and the uh, Eastern Theater Command, Southern Theater Command. They're all focused towards Taiwan, and so they've got adequate forces. They've got their plans laid out. It all depends upon the amount of meddling or the amount of the role which is going to be placed by the United States, the Australians, the United Kingdom, and all that. So how AUKUS comes about. So this is a
So
different ballgame altogether.
Rahul asks, there are reports that Russian EWs are jamming Ukrainian drones and missiles. Ukraine is unable to strike inside Russia. Even they shot down Scalp. Uh, yes, I think you're talking about the British missiles. Oh, the Scalp missiles, which are also used by the IAF Rafales.
Yeah, so they have. You see, EW jamming is that has bound to happen. We just spoke about it, and the Russians are very good at that.
Yeah.
And the drones, as you said, that's all due to the EW part of it, which is most effective. Second is physical destruction is through laser, you know, laser weapons, which takes place. The drones are brought down with lasers. That is the physical incapacitation. And the second is this EW disruption which takes place. And obviously, they have the if the in case they could have the Patriot missile defense systems in place. So in Moscow in Russia they have their S-300s and S-400s and all that, which they are already in place, and they are good. So perhaps yes, if they shut down the Scalp missile, absolutely.
Even the British storm shooters are getting shot down. So
Yeah,
they
they're
they
getting.
yeah they got them connected to their Sukhoi 24s and they're flying around, but they got shot down.
So they you see these missile defense systems are equipped and well placed to take on all these. The only question which came about was the Kinzhal missiles, which because they were hypersonic, because
I don't buy
they were flying at a hypersonic speed, and that is what it was. And other missiles will all get caught.
it. Yes, sir. Ishan, thanks so much. He says, just a follow up question to a couple of weeks ago. It seems like when smaller low tech drones munitions are used offensively, only the Iron Dome has shown to be consistently effective in intercepting them. So we are talking about that. This is a follow up to that, sir.
Yes, absolutely. That is how it is. It's the Iron Dome. I mean, what is an Iron Dome? Yeah, but Iron Dome is actually an Israeli system we're talking about. But I know that you're not referring to the Iron Dome, the Israeli system. You're looking at the AD umbrella, which is there, the air defense umbrella, which is created around a particular area. So it's called area air defense. You see, you have uh, vulnerable areas and vulnerable points. Vulnerable points are specific areas. Vulnerable areas are larger areas. They have to be protected by the air defense, and depending on the importance, those systems are deployed. Accordingly, the systems are deployed, and then they are layered. All of them are layered as to how they will be tackled. Some will be tackled physically, some will be tackled electronic warfare, some will be tackled by missiles, anti-missile systems. So this air defense, arrangement which is there, will always exist, and it's quite an
But this has
intricate
been
thing.
able to counter these drones pretty effectively. That's
Yeah,
true, sir.
they be, I mean, that is why they are in place, and these are getting picked up. You see, uh, you got to counter frequencies. Electronic warfare is what the one they're communicating on a particular frequency. The communication is required from the computer or from the pilot to the drone to be able to fly. And these are low tech drones, so they're using commercial frequencies. The commercial frequency is the easiest to pretty jam. So the jammers would be in place. The counter EW measures will all be in place.
Hmm.
So
So
this
Israelis do have a break for this, which
oh,
is interesting.
they have the Iron Dome. Iron Dome is the Israeli system which takes on all these. You see, why? What is it? You know, whom are they fighting? The Israelis. They have a fight going on every day. So they have these missiles and all this coming about on a daily basis. So they have to have a very strong Iron Dome or shield protecting their Tel Aviv and all that, the capital. So it's very effective. Yeah.
That's very that's a very interesting observation, sir. Uh, One second. Yeah. Can NATO increase artillery shells production and match Russian levels in 1 to 2 years? If yes, then loss ratios of Russia and Ukraine side will decrease and force Russia to do maneuver warfare by bypassing cities. Thoughts, sir.
Yeah.
That
Can
is,
NATO
if
increase
it
RT shell
lasts for that
production?
long. My question in this would be: would Ukraine last for another 1 or 2 years for it to?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just give you there was a statement I had. Uh, the number of shells. I mean, I may be wrong if I recollect. The number of RT shells that they use in 15 days is equivalent to the production of 3 months or something like that. Or was it right? So these guys are letting loose RT like crazy. मुफ्त का मिला है ना, HIMARS and all that. I mean,
Patriots.
the economy of force. As I said, there is no command and control. There is no philosophy. There is no this thing. How much of ammunition has to be fired against what kind of a target? That uh, planning is not taking place. They're just letting loose. Now, the basic essence in battle is even I'll just these I'm not talking RT at the moment. I'm deviating a little. I'm an infantry soldier, right? I'm an infantry soldier. How much of ammunition I'm carrying? I'm carrying 100 rounds. Period on me. First line, 100 rounds. So I have to conserve that. I have to make each bullet count. I can't be letting out all my magazines. I can't be just changing magazines. You know, it's not really getting another one. You don't get it, man. Every bullet counts. So the point I'm
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to make
yeah.
here is that artillery shells today, that's the biggest problem being faced by NATO. They do not have that production thing going. They have not been able to ramp up the production. Will they be able to do it in 1 to 2 years? Yes, but the pace of expenditure of ammunition is exceeding the pace of production. There's a mismatch. On the ground, they don't seem to care about all this.
But there have been no reports of the Western, at least industrial complexes, actually having any surge capacity and using it to produce more right now. They're just producing at the normal levels.
Or I'm sure they have. They, they may not be reports, but I'm sure they have. After uh, all these billions of money that is being poured into millions of this thing is being given to them, so they have to produce. and the sooner they produce, the more money they will get, because the
I didn't think about that.
yeah, it's all business. If I'm a
Sorry, sir.
ammunition,
I'm a normal-headed human being, sir.
it was a pure business है.
Yeah, yeah,
So production, I'm sure, is ramped up, and but it is not coming up to the requirements of the ground,
yeah.
because in the on the ground, I I I fear that there is uh, no planning per se. Jitna hai, whatever we have, let's let it go. Keep some for the rainy day and let it go. So there's no ammunition management. There is a huge study which goes on ammunition management. How many first lines, how much of ammunition will be expended on the first day, how much will be expended on the second day, how much if the war prolongs to so much, I must conserve, how much must come from, it's a whole study which goes around. It's not so easy. So I'm afraid the production is not meeting up with the expenditure, and there is no ammunition management philosophy on the NATO side or on the Ukrainian side.
Hmm.
And the
I'll
Russians
take
the Russians have adequate facilities.
I'll take one more question, sir, and after that is the time for the prediction before we close. The last one goes to Ishan. Thanks so much once again, man. You've been very kind. Another question: as NATO's manufacturing capability and economies are under severe stress, why are they trying to pick a fight with China right now? Is there something else at play behind the scenes?
Okay, now very interesting, Ishan. Why are they trying to fight with China? My dear friend, whatever is meant for China is not being used.
Stock उधर पे पड़ा है.
Yes, get it right. And that is a fresher stock. This what is being used, these what is being
पुराना.
used, what is being used and supplied is the stock which is not required. So these are called, I don't know, these are called WWR ammunition, wastage rates. Everything is calculated. This much of ammunition I will need for this front. This much of ammunition I'll need for this front. Now, if you go down to the organization of the United States Armed Forces, you will find that there are various commands: the Indo-Pacific Command and the AFRICOM and the CENTCOM. Each one has got its own ammunition requirements worked out, stocked, available. That's not going to be touched. The only thing that takes place is turnover of the ammunition mode. If it gets old, the old one gets replaced by new ones,
New
and the
ones.
old as old one is then either used for training purposes or sent to Ukraine, and this is what is happening. So there is a the in the military there is a these are things which are practiced, and everything is specified. So if you think that they don't have adequate stocks for China, I'm so sorry, they have, and they would be kept, and fresh stocks would be maintained there. The old stock will be given to Ukraine, or the extras will be given to Ukraine. I won't
So
say the same thing for Europe.
a very old regular from Dev Talks. I love his trivia, sir. He says one Excalibur shell costs more than 110,000 US dollars, and Ukraine is reported to fire 7,000 shells per day. I'm sure they're not firing all Excaliburs, but even
You're
it's
getting them
one
free of cost, no?
free का
Simple.
माल बोलते हैं इसको.
This is all simple. I mean, this is the reason. I mean, money doesn't matter.
Absolutely, absolutely, sir. And of course, sir, before we close, and my thoughts and Rishi Karan's meet the same. He says, ask General what would be his next move if he was a Russian commander.
Next move. Okay, now you guys have made me a very soothsayer.
नेवी तो खत्म
Now,
कर दी उसकी. बेचारा एक शिप थी वो भी तोड़ ताड़ के बराबर हो गई.
No, you see, right now the sea blockade is on of various ports. This blockade will get intensified further, and you will find that blockade will be more intensified. You will find that whatever small boats and ships that they have, sooner or later they'll also be taken on, and the naval capacity will be reduced to naught. So that is what, if I were to do it, I would do it that way. uh, all these ports would have been mined by, uh, the mining would have taken place. So that is what they would be wary of, as Russians would be wary of right now. And I want to draw Adi your attention to a statement of the Russian general who talked about their underwater capability.
Ah, yes. Last time we discussed about this. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we discussed offline. But this underwater capability of the Russians will come into play, and because this part is extremely important. Control of the Black Sea is extremely important. That is one. Now, at the moment, for this coming week, if I just look at it, the coming week, the focus will be again on degradation. They've taken on, they've taken on the electric uh, plants,
Hmm.
the power plants. They've taken on all nearly most of the logistic bases. They're focused on the ammunition dumps.
Yes, sir.
They've got onto the runways. They did get one of the bridges. So, in the end, once all that has happened, in the rear, that is west of the river line, there would be a wave in which all the just before the counter offensive is identified in the area that it is going to come, all these bridges will be taken on
On the
one
Nipah,
after
sir.
all on the NATO. All
Holy
the
crap!
bridges.
That'll be a natural encirclement.
So that's how it will happen, no?
Whoa.
So they'll cut them off because they would not want them to cross over, right? So
Get
that
them inside
outside,
here and then cut them off.
yeah, and then you cut them off, and then you start wrapping them from the river side towards your side. You understand? Whatever is on the eastern bank, then you have those guys. So at the moment you're having these guys over on the western front, on the west of the river. Then you take on the bridges, then you cut them off, and then you start from the line of the river line, and then take on whatever is existing on the eastern side, and then
Sure.
it's the end of the story for Ukraine. And of course, Kiev is what will be the major target, which will continue to be. I mean, they will not
Wow.
let them rest in peace. They will take on. They'll They'll take on the presidential palace. They will take on the Ministry of Defense, which they've already done once or twice. They will do that again. They'll take on the presidential policy wherever, whatever is the parliament, and all that. That will be taken on, and they'll be taken on and at a time when it is working, when they've got together. So all these things will happen slow, and in the next this thing, and there'll be no mercy as far as I'm concerned. There would be absolutely no mercy, which is there.
Wow.
And the air campaign will be conserved. I would put it, the air will still remain to be conserved because air will be required subsequently when their F-16s etc. build up, and when they build up, we don't know. If I would like to wait for them to come into the Ukrainian soil and then take them on the Ukrainian soil while they are still on ground.
Yep.
I would not let them fly, right? So this is what is going to happen. And as far as these small actions in Russia will continue. They will continue, and the
Seems like that.
intensity may increase to a certain extent, if I may just put it. they will not have much worthwhile effect overall. Yes, sir.
Amazing, sir. This war has been a journey that we've learned so much from. I personally have learned quite a bit about international politics, about military tactics, and probably just trying to give a little bit of a thought how to think in these kind of situations. I not a thought. I mean, give a little bit of an angle how to think in these situations, which a normal common citizen like me probably won't be able to understand when you don't look at these things in a very different military-eyed manner. And thank you so much for bringing that out for all of us, sir, because this is a complicated situation. There's a lot of misinformation, disinformation, double information, single information, all sorts of information flying around the place. If really one wants to find what's exactly happening, it's only places like this where we'll kind of get a fair idea of what is taking place. I think we are the only people in the country, sir, that is covering this war as enthusiastically. Only when there is a big thing that happens, everybody becomes a Ukraine expert. By the rest of the time, nobody's interested. And this thing, but I really commend you, sir. You've been at it, and you've given us the insight of this country. Till next time, sir, for another insightful episode. Jai Hind.
Well, thank you very much, Adi. Always a pleasure. We shall see how it unfolds in the next coming few days, and uh, and
How much
trust
of the
me,
small boats are left, sir?
yeah, those small boats will be taken on, a few submarines here and there if they exist, and yeah, aircraft we will see later once they come.
Right, sir.
Okay, bye. Thank
Good
you
night.
so much.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night. Bye bye. Take care.